We at the Advent Administration are hard at work 24 hours a day to protect and nurture our citizens, and never before has there been security and stability like all now.
Welcome back everyone to episode 3 of my Long War of the Chosen playthrough. Just a reminder to check out the playlist in the description if you've missed any previous episodes, or if you want to binge the entire series so far. Now for today, we're ready to head out for the network tower, but before that you can see here that we have a supply raid mission, except it's not really a supply raid. I believe this actually represents Advent moving soldiers from a neighbouring region into this one. If they're successful, Advent's strength in New Arctic will increase. Now strength is different to force level. Strength level will increase the number of enemies we face. Force level will alter the type of enemies. Now force level I think just increases over time and there's not really anything we can do to stop it, just like in the vanilla game. Strength level though, we do have some control over. If we defeat Advent on this supply raid, their attempt to increase the strength level will fail. The problem is we have less than 19 hours infiltration time, so I opt just to skip it. I did try one of these missions in my playtesting before I started this run, and my troops were massacred. So I don't think it's worth it. Advent wins this one. Meanwhile, Light Squad are infiltrating the network tower, and doing so takes a lot of time. So while that's happening, Near Squad has nothing better to do than going on an actual supply raid. Like a proper one where we're gonna grab a bunch of supplies. And this one is actually a new mission type in the mod. It's similar to the loot crate supply raids. We need to move in and grab a bunch of resources. The catch is that each operative can only carry a single crate's worth. So if you only brought 5 troops on the mission, but there's 6 crates on the map, you're not going to be able to get all of them. In addition, we do have to evac out, and the evac zone is fixed. So it's basically run in, grab as much gear as we can, and then run back out. All while the timer for Advent reinforcements is counting down. And I have to say, I really like this. New mission types, I think, are quite important for these types of overhaul mods. They go a long way to making it feel like a fresh experience. So this one gets a thumbs up from me. Now, of course, there are enemies guarding the supplies inside the building, so we're gonna have to deal with them, but by this point, I'm getting reasonably comfortable with the mod, and we have a dominant performance here. Advent doesn't really give us anything to worry about. And with that done, enough stalling, I promised a network tower mission, let's get into it. So Light Squad has picked up a new member for this one, Trash the Gunner. Let's hope he proves more useful than his namesake would suggest. And if you haven't played the mod, this mission is quite similar to the network tower mission that we play at the end of the vanilla game, except here we're obviously doing it a lot earlier. And I think you can do it multiple times in a single campaign, once for every region that you want to liberate. Now after disposing of the first pod, we take up position on the roof of this smaller structure, and our soldiers really come through for us. We activate a pod quite a distance away, and our hit chances aren't great, but the troops just land their attacks anyway. They don't care, they're taking these guys down. My personal favourite is when this sectoid runs out from the fog, and Avian just instantly murks it with her pistol. This is just so cool. Now I am advancing fairly slowly and cautiously, and we end up taking so long that some Advent reinforcements drop in. Now of course, on the same turn that they drop in, a pod inside the main building also activates. So we're essentially sandwiched between 2 groups of enemies. One in front of us, one behind us. Or at least that would be the case if not for the fact that Leo one-shots the entire pod of reinforcements with a single grenade. My goodness, this man is a monster. This was just the best thing ever. I was in hysterics when this happened. What a massacre. And while I enjoyed getting a chuckle out of that utter devastation, we do still have the other pod active. Now, I opt to just fall back into full cover. I'm hoping this is going to force the enemies to run through the building and cross the bridge to get to us. And the bridge has pretty bad cover, so I'm hoping they'll be right for the taking once they're on it. The plan kind of works and kind of doesn't. A Viper takes the bait and moves across the bridge, at which point we blow it sky high with grenades, so that's fine. And a similar fate befalls the drone and the trooper. But the sectoid, it takes up full cover inside the building and it just starts throwing out psionic attacks. Doesn't seem like it wants to move in any closer, so that means we're gonna have to move up onto the bridge ourselves. Now obviously we don't want to be fighting on this bridge since, like I just said, it's a bad position. So as we close in, we can disorient the sectoid with a flashbang. I know in the previous episode I said normally we don't want to do that, but once the sectoid runs out of psionic attacks, it's gonna start shooting anyway. And with it disoriented, at least we're increasing the chances that it's gonna miss. Now, Avian can use her holo targeter to improve our chance to hit, but even despite this, being in full cover, it gives the sectoid such good defense and we just cannot finish it. Now, like I said in episode 1, we are playing without integrated DLC, and one of the consequences of that is that we're able to scan for the alien hunter weapons. We don't need to research or build them. We effectively get them for free, minus the time it takes to scan them on the strategic layer. So Snack has a frost bomb, and his abilities give him 2 uses of it. So we end up having to freeze the sectoid, and that allows us to move in close enough to flank it. Then, finally, on the next turn, we can take it down. This thing was a stubborn enemy, I tell ya. But it's gone now, and with the enemies defeated, we can push forward and Leo can use his drone to access the computer terminal. This provides our boy Reginald, back on the Avenger, remote access, and the old man delivers on his promise, shutting down the psionic network completely. And with that, this mission is a success. Now, interestingly, during the hack, we obtained some information on a top-secret Advent installation, known only as the Black Site. Yeah, you have to make it this far in the Liberation quest just to unlock access to the Black Site. So once New Arctic is free of Advent control, it seems we have our next objective. Also, all 3 Chosen have activated at this point. Yeah, forget about reaching their region, they're all just here, they're all leveling up already, and they're all running ops against us. So it's probably gonna get pretty hectic. And just as we're ready to assault the Advent Fortress now that it's vulnerable, none other than Lord Skullet himself emerges on the battlefield. Our soldier Abomination and a bunch of resistance operatives were assisting us with intel gathering as we infiltrated the network tower, but despite the network being down, there are still Advent units actively moving in on Abomination's position. Now, this is a type of retaliation mission, and the Chosen will only show up on retaliation attacks and relevant story missions. We won't be seeing them on any ordinary guerrilla ops or anything like that. So we'll be encountering these blue scumbags less often than we do in vanilla, but the catch is they're gonna be a lot more powerful when they do show up. On this one, we have Abomination and all the resistance operatives in our haven. This disturbing individual was deployed as the Haven's protector after Crosseye was injured. Well, protector or oppressor, I'm not really sure. But either way, he's been caught off guard with this one. Dude was not expecting the Warlock to show up here. Now luckily, in addition to all those troops, we can also deploy 8 soldiers, with no need for infiltration times. This is a rapid response type of mission. So Drifter is back in action here. We did manage to finally build the infirmary, which helped get him back on the field sooner. And our commander isn't going to lie in a hospital bed while our people are under attack. So he's leading the now complete light squad. We've also picked up Visitor as a shinobi, so all 8 operatives are deploying together for the first time. That obviously means we have access to all 8 base classes on this mission. For the shinobis, I'm going with their sword abilities, since sword attacks are just so much fun in this game. I've also equipped Avian with a stock, and some of the weapon mods, including the stock, work differently in Long War than they do in the regular game. Instead of guaranteed damage, this upgrade now gives us access to the Steady ability. It gives a higher aim and crit chance to the next shot we make, and it proves invaluable here. From all the way across the map, we use Precision Shot to absolutely destroy this Advent Captain. Precision Shot is a special attack with a higher crit chance and crit damage. And the thing is, what's really cool is that after making the attack, because of death from above, Avian can use her stock to use Steady, so our next turn will also have an accuracy boost. So yeah, stocks on your sharpshooters can be very useful. And taking that captain down was actually super important. See, the Warlock has a new ability where he decrees one of the units on the field as his champion. While the champion is alive, the Warlock takes far less damage from all attacks. So the captain was the champion, and with it gone, the Warlock is now vulnerable. I think on his next turn he can assign a new champion, so we want to take full advantage of this weakness while we can. And fortunately, we have this random resistance operative who hurls a grenade right into him. And this skullet-wielding lunatic has taken up an absolutely terrible position. He's next to a car and a fuel pump.
Bombs away!
Yeah, just insane here. That was so much damage with a single attack. Now, the Warlock has a sustain style ability, and he instantly goes into his safety bubble at low HP. When he does this, he also summons the usual Spectral Lancer that he would in the vanilla game. Now, it's not a problem. Once again, a random operative from the Resistance launches the attack, and they're able to one-shot the Spectral. So the safety bubble's gone. It didn't last long. And since the massive explosions has destroyed the Warlock's cover, Abomination is primed and ready to take him down. And with that, the talkie man is finished. I don't think he was able to attack us a single time. So much for the Chosen being more difficult in this mod. That was just a slaughter. But hey, I'm not complaining. This leaves the remaining Advent forces, who are now leaderless, ours for the taking. And we show no mercy. We are sending these guys straight to the Shadow Realm. I'll also mention here that we've unlocked laser weapons. There's more than 3 levels of guns in Long War. I think there's 5. So we actually get laser before mag weapons. The problem is we have to build all these laser weapons individually. There's no barracks-wide upgrade like in the vanilla game. So the reason not everyone has a laser weapon is just because we can't afford that many. We're rocking as many as we can. With the Warlock's attack having been successfully repelled and our Resistance operative safe and sound, it's time to launch an attack of our own. We're going in for the Advent HQ. The units stationed here have been cut off from the Ethereals and their communication systems have been crippled. If there's ever a time to attack it, it's now. And this facility is the command station for the region's Advent military. Once we take it down, they'll have no way of sending reinforcements to their troops in the field. Advent will effectively be defeated within the region. And we get to field 10 soldiers here, which is pretty exciting. So Light Squad and Near Squad are joining forces to take down this facility. Pang has recovered from his wounds as well, and so he's joining the fight. And he and Drifter are actually fighting side by side for the very first time since the very first mission of the campaign. You'll also notice some troops are in plated armor. This is the same deal as the weapons. Once we've completed the research, we have to build each set of armor individually. We can't just slap it on everyone. Now that kind of sucks, but we're not going to let it stop us. Advent is going down here. And check this out, even with 200% infiltration, the maximum we can do, the enemy count is still between 31 and 33. So this is not going to be an easy fight. The good news is on the mission there's no time limit, so we're just going to go slow and steady. We do start the mission with concealment, but I end up losing it on a turret, which I think is the very first enemy we found. And this was a deliberate choice. I wanted to destroy this turret quickly. I think getting up on the roof that it was blocking access to will be worth it. It should allow us a dominant position on the battlefield. Now we do have Visitor who can keep his concealment thanks to the Phantom skill, and we can place Peng into shadow for 2 turns when we need to. Also, Peng's ability to detect enemies is brilliant. We activate these 2 drones, but in addition to that, Peng can sense a group of bad guys behind the building. So we're able to avoid accidentally activating them as we take on the drones. And really, the drones are more or less a nothing enemy by this stage, so our 9 soldiers, even excluding Visitor who can't attack, we can easily defeat these things. And then we can actually still get up on the roof without activating that other pod. Now while avoiding them like this is nice, eventually we are going to have to fight them. And I think there's 10 soldiers in this pod alone. That means if we want to keep Visitor concealed, our 9 soldiers have to take down 10 enemies. Well, it's actually 11 since we activate another turret on the roof as well. And here, our troops seem to understand the gravity of the situation, as Board and Drifter both land big damage crits. This is exactly what we need right now. I should also say I've bonded these 2, and I've also bonded Turkey and Visitor. My approach here is to bond soldiers based on their class. See, in Long War, not only is the level 1 bond action not as good as vanilla since it can only be used for movement, not attacking, there's actually another downside to it as well. You also need line of sight between the 2 soldiers to use it. So I figure the technical and the ranger should mostly be in the middle of the group, while Turkey and Visitor, the assault and the shinobi are probably going to be on the front line. So my thinking is that by bonding soldiers who should be close to each other in the formation, we can maximize the usefulness of those bonded actions. Anyway, we are able to take down a great deal of enemies, but not all of them. There's just too many. Now Board avoids the attack against her, so that's what we like to see. Task Manager, though, isn't as lucky. He's down to 3 HP. So we're going to need to be careful with him for the remainder of the mission. Even if we heal his HP, his shield points are gone. We cannot get those back. And what's even worse is that before we're done with this pod, another one patrols into us and activates. And it has some weird, messed up looking type of Viper in there. I don't know what this thing is, but I'm kind of scared of it. Now Deep is near Squad's Grenadier and he kicks off our next turn with a free deployment of a flashbang to remove the suppression on Board. He then blasts the Priest to attack Task Manager right in the face, and after that I think it's time to use Drifter's rocket. I was hoping it would bring down the entire tower that the new pod is hiding in, but sadly not to be. Our environmental damage just isn't that good. You might also notice here the sectoids have 9 HP instead of 8 now. That wasn't a thing before. See, a permanent dark event triggered, giving some enemies extra health. And yes, permanent dark events are a thing in Long War. Now thankfully not all of them are permanent, but this one was, and it kind of renders our laser weapon advancements useless. Even though we're doing more damage, enemies now have more HP to counter it, so kind of still where we were to begin with. Anyway, just like last turn, we annihilate quite a few enemies, but there's still just too many to finish them all. And I would have really liked to hit that Viper. It is disturbing me a little bit, but it was hiding inside the tower and there was simply no way to reach it. So we're going to see what this thing is capable of, and it decides to poison 3 of our troops. Really wish I had bought 2 specialists on this one. But there is some good news here. Our shield points actually eat the poison damage for us. Now, I'm not sure that makes any sense from a logical perspective, but I'm not complaining. This is an awesome development. And while 3 troops being poisoned is unfortunate, remember, we got to deploy 10 on this one, so we still have plenty of soldiers who are not poisoned. And they finally wipe out the last of the enemies. I mean the enemies that we're currently dealing with. There's still plenty more on the map. Now, after a couple of turns, the poison will wear off on its own, and once this happens, I then regroup all the soldiers on the roof. Then it's time to send out Pang and Visitor to scout the surrounding area. Now, it takes a while, these maps are really big, but we're gonna need patience here. The last thing I want to do is stumble into a whole bunch of enemies when we're not ready. Now, our pair of scouts make it onto a different roof without encountering any opponents. So I then start double timing it with the rest of the team to reach this new location. We're going to repeat our roof strategy. So once everyone's up there, we do finally find some new pods. The plan is to spot them with the concealed soldiers, then with the non-concealed units we want to get as close to the bad guys' line of sight as we can and set up Overwatch. And then we just hope that the enemies patrol into us and we can light them up. Now there's another one of those weird looking Vipers, and apparently they're called Sidewinders. As of writing this script, I have absolutely no idea what they do differently from a normal Viper. Anyway, more pods do activate, but we prove too much for them. None of these pod sizes seem anywhere close to being as big as that initial one that we had to fight. I'm thinking maybe that was actually 2 pods on top of each other, I'm not sure. But these guys, they've got like 3 enemies per group, so it's not nearly as tough to deal with them. Now there are also a bunch of turrets, but we can exploit these things extremely easily. See, they can't move, and both Pang and Avian have squad sight, so we can keep Visitor concealed to get line of sight on the turret, and then we can just take pot shots at these mechanical monstrosities until they're gone, and they really can't do anything to hit us back. And then it's time for the main event. This Advent squad inside the main building here, and these guys simply are not moving from their position. Like, they would have literally seen bullets and explosions flying past the window at the front of the room, but they're not taking the bait. They stay right where they are. And honestly, this is a good strat from them. As soon as they leave the structure, we're going to bombard them with Overwatch fire. So by staying still, they're actually forcing us to move up on them. And that works to their benefit. And it honestly kind of reminds me of those scenes in films where the characters are holding up inside a building. They've got their weapons at the ready as the bad guys or the monster coming to maim them, or whatever is slowly approaching. They know at any moment the door or window is going to be breached and they'll be fighting for their lives. Nerves of steel, just waiting for the fight to come to them. And these Advent soldiers are pretty much living out that scene in one of those movies right now. But the thing is, there's a problem for these guys. See, if we run in there, the pod is going to scatter, so we don't want to do that. But what they haven't realised is that we can actually fire rockets from beyond line of sight. And remember how I mentioned Task Manager is on this mission? Yeah, we brought 2 technicals. So that means even though Drifter has used his rocket already, we still have another one at our disposal. So you know that scene in the movies that I was just describing? Imagine if it ends with a giant explosive ploughing straight through the wall and annihilating the entire group. Nerves of steel aren't going to save you from that. And yeah, this is utter devastation. The building's now on fire, and sure enough that causes the pod to scatter, as they should, finally. And they're being led by this Advent General. This is a new enemy type for Long War, and I guess this guy is pretty much the man in charge of Advent's military operations in all of New Arctic. So once he's gone, the head of the snake should be well and truly severed. And I did get a laugh out of how close he is to Pang but still can't see him. Truly, our Reaper friend is a master chameleon. And it's actually Chan, our gunner, who puts the General down with a powerful chain shot. He had a lot of HP and good defense, so he's hard to hit, but that's about it. He wasn't that tough. That may be because we didn't actually let him get a turn and do anything. But even so, he wasn't that tough. Now, some of his lackeys are still standing. I'm 99% certain this is the last pod, so we might as well attack with Visitor. I'm actually impressed I was able to keep him concealed for all this time. The thing is, he does have the Hunter's Axe, so that's going to provide him a free attack. I think now's a good time to use that. And it takes every single action point we have at our disposal, but we do manage to take down the entire retinue before they can hit us back. The day is won, Advent is defeated, and New Arctic is now free of alien control. And this means they won't actually be running any ops in the region anymore. Plus, we also get a free radio tower installed. So this is a huge victory here. A really good step forward for us. Now, I believe Advent can try to recapture the region by attacking it, but for now, the area is ours. And this means we're free to turn our attention to the Black Site. But once again, I'm afraid we're out of time, so the Black Site's going to have to wait for another day. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, a comment, and subscribing to the channel. And if you sign up to my Patreon within the next 7 days, you'll get early access to episode 4. The link is in the description if you're interested in that. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you for the next one, and until then, have a great day.